good to have you back. This outcome is all about the command line and how the same everyday jobs are done with different words depending on whether you are sitting at the Windows command prompt or a Linux shell. A command line interface lets you control the computer just by typing instructions, and it's remarkably powerful once you're comfortable. The catch is that different operating systems grew up separately, so they use different words for very similar jobs. Windows command prompt says dir and copy, where Linux says ls and cp. In this outcome, we'll build a list of the major commands for two systems and describe what each one is for. Our two are the Windows command prompt, cmd, and the Linux and Unix shell, bash. Before the lists, it helps to see how a command is put together, because it usually has three parts. First, the command itself, which says what to do, like copy, then an argument saying what to act on, such as the source file, and then a further argument telling it where or how, like the destination folder. Order and spelling really matter here, because the computer does precisely what you type, no more and no less. A few terms will keep cropping up. The shell is the program that reads and runs your typed commands, bash on Linux, for example. The prompt is the little bit of text showing the shell is ready and waiting, perhaps C:\users, or just a $sign. A command is the instruction it carries out, like listing or copying files, and a switch, sometimes called a flag, is an option that changes how a command behaves, such as adding /w or -l. For this outcome, we're comparing two widely used command sets. On one side, the Windows command prompt, cmd, the classic Windows command line. On the other, the Linux and Unix shell, bash, which you'll find on Linux desktops, on servers, and inside the macOS terminal too. Plenty of jobs are the same on both, but the command words and their options differ, and the tables coming up lay them side by side. It's easier to learn these if we group them by what they do. Navigation commands move you around your folders, things like cd, dir, ls, and pwd. File management commands create, copy, move and delete files, copy and cp, del, and rm. System commands check and control the machine, like task list and ps. And networking commands test and configure your connections, such as ping and ipconfig. The encouraging thing is how many commands are simply direct equivalents doing the very same job. dir and ls both list what's in a folder. Copy and cp both copy a file. Del and rm both a delete one. Once you spot that pattern, hopping between the two systems becomes surprisingly easy. You're really just learning a second word for something you already understand. Let's start with files and folders. To list a directory, Windows uses dir and Linux uses ls. To move between folders, both use cd, and cd ... steps up a level on either. Making a folder is md or mkdir on Windows and mkdir on Linux, while copying is copy versus cp and deleting is del versus rm. Renaming is interesting. Windows has ren, but Linux uses env, the very same command it uses to move a file. Now the system and networking side. To clear the screen, it's cls on Windows and clear on Linux. To see your network address, Windows uses ipconfig and Linux uses ipadr. Listing running processes is task list versus ps, and stopping one is task kill versus kill. There are direct pairs for checking system info, changing permissions, and searching inside files. grep on Linux and shutdown works on both, while for help, Windows offers help, and Linux gives you man, the manual. A few more round out the picture. Around disks and viewing files, tree shows your folder structure as a branching tree on both systems. To read a long file one screen at a time, Windows uses more and Linux uses less. Checking a disk for errors is HE versus FSCK, and formatting a volume is format versus MKFs, while everyday commands like date and echo happen to be spelled the same on both. Let's describe a few of these properly, starting with getting around. Navigation commands move you through the folder structure, so dir on Windows and ls on Linux list what's in the current folder, and cd changes directory on both, with cd ... heading back up towards the root. One real difference is the path separator. Windows uses backslashes, as in C:\users, while Linux uses forward slashes, like /home/user. Knowing where you are and how to move is the foundation of everything else. Next, working with files themselves. Copy and CP duplicate a file, while move and MV relocate it or rename it. Del and RM delete files, and MD or mkdir create new folders. And if you just want to peek inside a text file, type on Windows or CAT on Linux prints its contents straight to the screen without opening an editor. These are exactly the jobs you do by dragging and dropping in a GUI, but far quicker when you're handling a lot of files at once. Then there are the commands that report on and control the machine itself. ipconfig or ipadr on Linux shows your network address, which is the first thing you check when the connection misbehaves. Task list and PS list the running processes, and task kill or kill let you stop one that's frozen. Ping tests whether another computer or a website can actually be reached. These are the everyday tools IT staff reach for to diagnose and fix problems. Let's work through a real one. Backing up a folder called coursework to another drive. On Windows, you'd change into your user folder with CD, then run xcopy coursework to the backup drive with the /e switch. On Linux, you'd CD into your home folder, then cp-er coursework to the backup location. Both first move into the right place, then copy the folder, and the /e switch and the -r flag both simply mean include the subfolders. Same job, different words. Here's another, closing a program that's frozen, all from the command line. On Windows, task list shows you what's running, then task kill with /imchrome.exe and /f forces Chrome to close. On Linux, PSAUX lists the processes, then kill followed by the process's ID number stops it. Both follow the same two-step logic: find the process, then stop it. And it's a good deal quicker than hunting through menus when the machine has stopped responding. There's a handful more worth knowing around help and permissions. For help on a command, Windows takes the command, then /?, while Linux uses man followed by the command name. To change permissions, Windows uses attrib and Linux uses chmod. And to change who owns a file, Linux offers chown. And if you ever forget which commands you've just run, Windows keeps a record through dosky, and Linux simply gives you the history command. Two ideas make the command line genuinely powerful: switches and wildcards. Switches, also called flags or options, change how a command behaves. Windows switches start with a /, like dir/w for a wide listing, while Linux options start with a dash, like ls-l for a detailed one. Wildcards let you match many files at once, so star.txt means every file ending in .txt on both systems. Used carefully, that's a huge time saver, but do take care, del star.star and rm-rf can wipe out a great deal very quickly, so always check a delete command before you press enter. Let's stand back and compare. The similarities are strong. Both use a prompt, typed commands, arguments, switches, and wildcards, and both let you navigate and manage files. The differences are in the detail. The command words differ, dir versus ls. The path separators differ, / versus /. Linux is case-sensitive, where Windows generally isn't, and Linux options use dashes, while Windows uses slashes. On top of that, the macOS terminal uses the same Unix commands as Linux, and Windows PowerShell adds a more modern, more powerful shell. That last point deserves a slide of its own. Because macOS is built on Unix, its terminal uses exactly the same commands as Linux, ls, cp, rm, cd, and man all work, so any Linux skill transfers straight to a Mac. Windows PowerShell, meanwhile, is a newer and far more capable shell than the old CMD. It brings in CMDlets like get child item to list, copy item to copy, and remove item to delete, and it even accepts ls and cp as aliases, so the three main environments actually overlap far more than they differ. A few habits will serve you well as you practice. Always read the prompt so you know which folder you're in before you act. Lean on the built-in help, command / or man, whenever you're unsure. Try any risky command on sample files first and keep a backup, because the command line does precisely what you tell it, including deleting files you didn't mean to. Practice just a few commands each week, and you'll build real confidence surprisingly fast. Let's bring this outcome together. A command line interface controls the computer through typed commands, each made of a command, its arguments, and its switches. Windows command prompt and the Linux shell do the same jobs with different words, dir and ls, copy and cp, deal and rm, and system commands like iptconfig, tasklist, and ping let you check networks and manage processes. The key differences are the command words, the path separators, case sensitivity, and whether options start with a / or a dash. And once you've learned one command line, the very same ideas carry across to macOS terminal and PowerShell. And that wraps up our tour of system commands, where we've seen that Windows and Linux really are speaking dialects of the same language. To take it further, the reading list offers the classic operating systems texts from Silberschatz, Tannenbaum, and Stallings for the theory underneath. For hands-on practice, Microsoft Learn documents the Windows commands in full, and the Free Software Foundation's Bash manual does the same for the Linux shell, both linked in your references. The best way to learn, though, is to open a terminal and try a few commands for yourself, and remember to reference any UK Versity slides you use in your work.